All right, welcome to the Jay Martin Show. My name is Jay Martin, and my guest today is Warren Irwin, the president and CIO at Rosseau Asset Management. And Warren is an absolute titan when it comes to making money in the junior mining industry. And we begin today's conversation talking about the green revolution in relation to the nuclear industry and a lot of the problems that Warren sees with that. But 5-10 minutes in, where we get to and where you're going to want to focus is Warren's top picks or some of his favorite companies in the nickel sector, in the coal sector, in the copper sector, and in the uranium sector. So I hope you enjoy this. He's always a blast, very insightful, and he's made a pile of money in this industry. So I pay attention when he speaks. Before we begin, as always, beneath this piece of content, there is a link where you can subscribe to my weekly newsletter. I publish every Sunday. I love writing it. I'd love to have you join the team. The link is down below. Here is Warren Irwin. Enjoy.
This is Jay Martin.
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Jay Martin Show, and I'm joined once again by Warren Irwin, the president at Rosseau Asset Management. And if you look closely, it looks like Warren just lost a fight. What's going on with your left eye, Warren?
Oh, hey, Jay, you should have seen the other guy. Yeah, but no, sadly, it wasn't a fight. I got smacked in the face with a branch, and it's just kind of the remnants of it. So I didn't want anybody to think I lost a fight. Yeah, sadly, it was just a branch. But what do you do?
Got it. All right, so let's start. I want to go kind of asset or sector by sector here. Get your thoughts, bullish, bearish, if you're allocating cash, how you're doing it. Love to start with uranium because I've known you to be bullish on uranium before anybody else was, and this is going back a couple of years. You're one of a few people that was allocating capital to that sector. Today, it seems like a lot more people are, right? And there's public sentiment all over the place, suddenly pro-nuclear. This is the solution. We got to power via nuclear. And I wonder how you respond to that, right? When the public sentiment catches up with you as an early stage investor, like how do you feel today about the uranium sector?
Yeah, well, finally, common sense has prevailed. Back 7 years ago, 5 years ago, people look at me as if I had three heads saying nuclear is the way to go. And I remember, speaking with Al Gore at a TED conference, and he was up there speaking about renewables. And, renewables is possibly the stupidest label for any energy source I've ever heard. But he was out there pitching wind and solar. And I knew that, just from doing some basic mathematics, that wind and solar is not going to power our Earth going forward. You just can't tell your workers at your plant, sorry, it hasn't been windy in a few days and it's been overcast, so sorry, we can't come to work, there's no power for the plant. We need solid baseload power, and for much of the industrial world, that's been thermal coal and burning coal. So problem with that, of course, is in my world, is burning thermal coal. It's just very polluting, and I don't like the pollution. I'm not necessarily the global warming CO2 advocate, but it's more of a pollution thing. So it makes a ton of sense to have nuclear power. And nuclear power, there's about 100 reactors in the US, and in Canada there's quite a number of reactors, and they're just quietly generating power as we speak, not causing too much of a fuss. And they've been the safest way to produce power, baseload power. And so to have the greenies and their renewables not included until very recently is pretty ridiculous, when you think these guys would have been smart enough when the whole renewables started that you just can't shut out nuclear. And my biggest beef with the greenies and the way they've damaged the environment is, Greenpeace was, when I was a kid, they were anti-nukes back in the 70s, and they've been anti-nuke ever since. They're still anti-nukes, claiming how dangerous it is. But we've been running nukes now for 50 years since Greenpeace started their protests, and obviously we had nukes before Greenpeace started protesting nukes. And more people have been killed with hydroelectric power, and definitely with burning thermal coal. So because of their incendiary comments about nuclear power back in the 70s and ever since then, we've been burning coal and polluting the earth. And we've set nuclear power research back about half a century. So there's an example of one misguided environmental group doing a tremendous amount of damage to the environment. And we've been burning thermal coal for 50 years when we shouldn't have. Should have been using nuclear power. And today, had we been working on R&D for the last 50 years, I would imagine a significant amount of our nuclear power today would be Gen 4 fail-safe nuclear reactors where the fuel is already in liquid form, so it can't melt down. So there's a lot of positives with nuclear, and I'm a big fan. I got into it about, really 7 years ago. I really got into it with the discovery of NextGen's Arrow deposit, and I was at one point the biggest shareholder in NextGen.
Right, right. And are you like, what are your thoughts on the supply and demand economics of uranium for the nuclear sector at present? Like, is uranium exploration a sector you're looking at? Development companies, are you looking at them, or are you pretty comfortable with your next gen position and that satisfies you? What do you think?
Yeah, right now I'm happy with NextGen. The general sense back 7 years ago, when I was bullish on uranium, people were telling me, smart guys I knew were saying, Warren, there's about 1 billion pounds of uranium just sitting around in stockpiles that are going to hit the market here. So don't go thinking there's going to be a big rally anytime soon. And sure enough, in the last 7 years, there's been about a deficit of about 50 million pounds being made up. And if you add to that, what Yellowcake and Sprott Uranium Trust has bought out of the market, we're over 400 million pounds appeared out of nowhere, not from primary production, but from secondary supply. And so the people being really super brave right now saying we're going to get $150 uranium, well, they must have information I don't have about secondary supply and the fact that we're, down to the scraping the bottom of the barrel on secondary supply. But secondary supply always is a risk. The dynamics, in my opinion, on uranium and why we are unlikely to see what we saw last cycle. Everybody wants to see the spike to $150 a pound. A lot of people made a lot of money. There were, anywhere from 400 to 600 new uranium juniors out there. And then, of course, at the end of the boom, there was probably less than 10, right? So a lot of people got vaporized, but a lot of people made a lot of money, right? So everybody wants that again, especially the guys that own the junky uranium companies right now. So they want nothing better than to run the price as much as they can. And Sprott Uranium Trust is getting out there trying to help corner the market by sopping up some of this spot supply floating around. So that's on the supply side. You get this big unknown that really nobody knows the answer to. On the demand side, there's, let's say 50 nuclear power plants on the basis of off a base of 440 plants, let's say under construction. So if those get completed over the next 5 or so years, you're looking at a small single-digit percentage increase in demand for uranium. So the demand side, it's all nice for us to all get excited about uranium and the demand for it and the obvious benefits of nuclear power plants. But guess what? Are you aware of one being built in the US? I'm not. Or one being built in Canada? No. So that's entire North America. I'm not aware of a single nuclear power plant being built. Maybe Mexico is doing something. I just don't know. But globally, it's not as if there's a massive build out anywhere really other than China. So they're ones to watch. So on the supply side, we're talking about the secondary supply, big unknown. And on the demand side, it's impossible to grow nuclear power plants quickly, right? It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So then you're looking at production. You're looking at Kazatomprom. My recollection is they're still 10% below their peak production. They could bring that on stream when they wish. And they represent, 40-ish% of the global production. So they could bring on reasonably significant production just to get back to where they were before. And in my talks with previous executives of Kazatomprom, they told me with $100 million they could have something on within a year. And in situ leach, as you're aware, is quite a bit easier to get on stream than a typical hard rock uranium mine. So the Kazakhs, I believe, can supply additional uranium, no problem, should we need it. And then you're looking at chemicals ramping back up. McArthur River. McArthur River is an old, beat up, tired old mine. Not expecting great things from Cameco on that one. And then you're looking at Cigar Lake, should be mined out here in the next decade or so. But then, you got the big daddy coming at you, which is Arrow, which is 30 million pounds a year coming at us. So you've got a whole bunch of things in the air. And, some of these guys could, out there in the market touting big numbers could predict how this is all going to settle out. More power to them. But generally, I don't necessarily see the big supply problem that everybody else is getting all excited about. And but I think definitely the mood in the uranium sector is doing well. I personally would have thought, I was around in uranium, invested in NextGen when this uranium was around $17 a pound.
Right.
It's now around 50.
Yeah.
So you've almost had a tripling, right?
Yeah.
And if you had the triple in the price of gold, you would imagine the juniors would have gone up like skyrocketed, right? That did not happen in NextGen.
No.
And that didn't happen to a lot of the others. So it's a very fascinating time to be involved in the market. And, people are saying, Warren, we're going to get to $80, $100. I said, well, pretty much every uranium property I know of in the world today is economic at 75. So you crank it up to $75, and every piece of junk uranium property that I'm aware of is economic. So that's a fair amount of all you need is a bit of time, get that into production, and there'll be lots of it available. And then people are saying we're going to see $500 uranium. I say, well, I heard the same nutty stories last uranium cycle, and I view as the cap on uranium is wherever you could recover it from seawater. Last cycle, the rumor was seawater recovery was around $200 a pound.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when we dropped down to $17 a pound, that was definitely off the shelf. But there is an upward bound. That's why I'm so positive about nuclear energy going forward, is we have lots of it. Like, there's no scarcity of uranium in the earth. And it's available out of seawater. It's available in situ recovery in Kazakhstan. It's available in hard rock in the Athabasca Basin. It's available in waterlogged sand in the Athabasca Basin, as in what McArthur River and Cigar Lake are mining.
Yeah.
There's lots of it around, and it just takes time.
If you enjoy my content, let's take the next step. I publish a weekly newsletter and it's free every Sunday. The link to subscribe is right beneath this video. I share my key takeaways and action items from conversations just like this and plenty others. So join me and 50,000 other investors for this exclusive content weekly by hitting that link. All right, back to the interview. There's like two factors at play, right? There's public policy, and public sentiment, which is trending towards being favorable to nuclear. Finally, I suppose is a good way to put that. And for the right reasons, right? All the reasons you just discussed. It's long-term, baseload, reliable, cheap power. It's clean, zero emissions, all the right reasons. And then there's the investor side of it, right? The uranium investor side of it, who I think are probably holding on to a memory of 2007, right? Of that parabolic rise in price. And they're like, that's coming back. And that's what they're waiting for. But those two things don't both have to happen, right? We can get favorable public sentiment. We can get policy that favors nuclear power, and over the next 10, 20 years, build more plants. That doesn't mean that we're going to see this hockey stick 2007 runaway price again, does it? Like, one doesn't equal the other. Is that correct? Or what do you think about that?
Yeah, we don't need runaway out of control things. Generally, the mining business, it's a cyclical business, right? But in general, miners have always been able to supply the metals that people need, given a certain amount of time. So any spike in price will get adjusted. There's, as you know, the old saying in the mining business, there's no better cure for high prices than high prices, because like if people were around, and a lot of your listeners were around back in the last uranium boom, when you have 400 guys banging on your door trying to raise money to look for uranium, and everybody has this uranium property that their Uncle Ted used to have when he worked at Cameco, and he knows all about it, and like they're everywhere, right? So, and everybody wants to bring those back, and everybody wants the big run, and so everybody's expecting that. And generally, my view in life is when everybody expects something to happen, it never really happens. The last time it happened, I think some very astute, in looking back in hindsight now with a little bit more experience than I had back in 2007, I think what happened there is you had a number of players that went out, bought a whole bunch of juniors, and then just ramped the spot market. and it was clearly ramped to 150 by parties. It's a
Uh,
very illiquid market. It was ramped, and I'm pretty sure those parties were the ones selling all the junk at the top to the new unsuspecting investors, and a lot of people lost a lot of money the last cycle, and if they were holding some of the junk when the craze was there. But
yeah.
the important thing, I think, for investors to realize, there's lots of uranium in the world. Don't get carried away thinking there's a shortage. There's lots of it. It's just a matter of, we don't need too many, we don't need much of a price move to make a lot of it start kicking in and starting to be economic. So don't get super excited. Don't buy all the hype. And there might be a short-term blip, but Kazatomprom and a number of the other players will just turn the spigot on and just satisfy that demand, because for them, a lot of these producers, they have a good relationship with their consumers, which are the big uranium utilities, and for them, I don't think it serves anybody's interest to have a hugely volatile input costs into the nuclear reactors. So it was just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, and good thoughts. And retail speculators are always going to look for a market, right? Like they saw one in 05, 06, 07 in uranium. There's always something going on that's pulling retail speculators in, whether it's cannabis or recently crypto, and then that's now crashed. What's next? Like, what's the next potato, do you think, Warren, for retail speculators to rush into?
Well, I tweeted the other day one which actually got surprisingly good coverage, was the crypto market the weed market went kaput. The crypto market went kaput. So to all you dumb speculators, please bring all your money back to the mining sector where you belong, right? Because you're the same crowd, right? They just look for the latest big money making idea, right? And so who knows? Maybe we'll see some of that dumb fast money come back to the mining sector, and get a run going, and whether it be gold or uranium or whatever. But to that dumb money that wants to come back to the mining sector, welcome. It's nice to have you back. You've been gone for too long. Yeah, but that being said, I really don't think the mining sector is the worst place to be speculative in here. Like, the valuations are definitely pretty darn cheap. And if we're going to accomplish any of the goals some of these characters want to accomplish with respect to electrification, we're going to need lots of copper. We're going to need lots of nickel. We're going to need lots of lithium.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, because you've made piles of dough speculating in the mining sector, Warren. If there's a new population rushing in, provide some counsel and guidance. Like, where are you looking right now? Are you allocating cash to anything earlier stage or development stage? What commodities are you excited about? Let's talk mining, and where are you pushing capital right now?
Yeah, the big thing is, copper is always a good one. I have my biggest copper investment right now is in Sol Gold, and we just got recently taken out. I was in Cornerstone before. We just got recently bought out by Sol Gold, and we have one of the world's top 5 undeveloped copper projects in the world. It's in Ecuador, and we're grinding through. There's it's not without issues, but we're grinding through there, and we'll be doing the right thing for investors going forward here. So we'll try and realize value there for everyone, including myself and my fellow big shareholders. And so that's one of them. That's it's not a recommendation to buy Sol Gold, but basically it's a super cheap story. It has some hair on it for sure, and but we're grinding through all the problems and trying to get them solved and get it sold to the highest bidder at some point. So that's one way I'm playing it. And am I reluctant to throw more money at copper exploration? Somewhat reluctant right now, because we've really yet to see the big paydays, the big takeouts of the big copper discoveries. So there's no use, me funding exploration. We find a big copper deposit, and then guess what? All the big mining companies beat the crap out of us on price, and we don't get rewarded for the risk and effort we put in over the years, right?
Yeah.
Another really good one I think any newbies may want to take a peek at is Filo. I do not own shares in Filo.
Okay.
But it's definitely one one of the more blue chip juniors out there, and they're sitting on an amazing copper discovery. So if you want to play the copper, stocks, that's a really good one. And I may perhaps put some money into Philo once I sell Solgo, or once we get Solgo sold. Also, I'm involved in NextGen, as mentioned. I've gotten involved recently in a nickel sulfide project. Possibly the first time I've been involved in nickel sulfide since my investment in Noron some time ago. But nickel sulfide is extraordinarily rare to find, and that's used both in battery metals and stainless steel and everything. So with or without the big battery metals boom, to find a good nickel sulfide project is very rare, and they're very sought after. So I'm involved in that one. I'm in the process now of completing my due diligence. I'm waiting for a few more things to happen before I'm comfortable, banging the table on it. But just if some of your listeners want to do some work on it, it's Premium Nickel Resources. I just got back from Botswana looking at the project. It's pretty exceptional, and the grades are there. They've got a lot of infrastructure already in place, supportive government. Botswana is possibly the best mining jurisdiction in Africa. They have a tremendous mining history with the two big diamond mines they're working with De Beers on. So that's something I'm working on. I own probably 3% of the company, maybe 4%, but I'm continually doing more work on it. There's a few things I want to see happen before I jump in with both feet and take a massive position in it. And then I'm looking also at super cheap assets, like I'm the largest shareholder of Colonial Coal. That's a metallurgical coal story. It's trading at ridiculously cheap levels. I think 30 cents a ton in the ground, when met coal is trading at $400 a ton. So it's obviously worth somewhere between 30 cents and $400, but we'll see where that ends up. Met coal is in demand, and once again, many of the greenies aren't aware of the difference between thermal coal and met coal. Thermal coal, in my view, is the bad coal. That's when you burn. It's generally dirtier, lower quality. It's burned. It's thermal. It's used in power stations. A bunch of stuff goes up in the stack. And met coal is the higher quality coal that goes into making of steel. And it's the technology of using met coal to making steel is at least 100+ years old. Some people are saying, well, you got to replace met coal with hydrogen. My understanding is that can be done in certain situations, but as you know, with hydrogen, you have to look back at hydrogen. Well, how are you making the hydrogen? Is it green hydrogen? So by the time you actually look at using hydrogen and you go back to the green hydrogen, and I'm not sure that's the answer to this particular problem. It might be something like carbon sequestration or something like that if people are concerned about CO2.
Right.
And
right.
In the atmosphere, yeah. But so a little bit of copper, uranium, met coal, and nickel sulfides. I think that's the place to be.
Now, are you looking at, like, for nickel, for example, would you look at like a nickel copper royalty company, like a Nova Royalty, for the reasons that you're sort of hedged against inflation of various input costs? Is that appealing to you, or do you not sweat that?
Yeah, that's sort of not what I do. I like a little bit higher octane, but for a lot of people who want a little bit more conservatism in their portfolio, buying the right royalty company could be a way to go. But my passion is really, and where I've made most of my money is in the discovery cycle, which is getting out there, getting in early with the discovery, and then seeing it through, and then obviously getting it sold. So I'm working on, and the management teams of Colonial Coal, they're working on selling their company. Management team of Solgo is working at selling their company. NextGen, frankly, I can't believe it hasn't been bought by Cameco yet, but I cannot understand Cameco. I'm not a big fan of what goes on there and their thinking. But 3 extraordinary projects, and then again, I'm looking at Premium Nickel now, and it's a pretty special situation. And it could be a very, very big winner if a few things go right for us all.
So give me a headline, a couple of headlines on premium nickel. I'm curious. I'm just looking at it right now.
Headlines as in what do I like about it the most?
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
So what I like about it is they've taken over two projects from the Botswana government that basically had been shut down in the previous mining cycle due to issues with their smelter. So they're going in there, taking a very fresh look at things. One thing I've learned in my career, dealing with different mine finding techniques, is geophysics is very powerful, and it's, in my experience, it is the most powerful in finding nickel sulfides. And so the CEO is a geophysics expert, and they're using downhole EM to light up a lot of the nickel underground. So when the EM says you've got the nickel there, you've pretty much got the nickel there. So all you need to do then is follow it up with drill holes. So the key exciting part of it is that they've got two mine shafts. One here is called Salibe, and one is Salibe North. Both have been mined down here, but there's this big gap zone that there's been no work and no drilling. It's in the deepest part of the situation. And based on the work I've done thus far, I believe the whole structure is continuous, which means there could be several kilometers of strike length. I've driven from Salibe to Salibe North, and just to be sitting there in a pickup truck driving kilometer after kilometer between these two head frames and knowing that the two join up, that's where the big, massive upside could be with this situation. If indeed my thoughts are correct, that the geophysics that they've already done will will be followed up with drilling, and will confirm they've got the thicknesses and the grades that make it economic to join these two deposits together. And then what you do is you just pop a shaft down the middle, right in between the two of them, and get to work mining it. Yeah.
And on a project like that, what is your time horizon? Like, how long have you been in the deal? What's your forecasted time horizon?
I've been in the deal for over a year. Time horizon wise, barring a takeout, these guys are trying to get some of this into production in starting to get things, mine builds starting in 3 to 5 years. And I know they've got one other project too, which is a little closer to production. So they're just gearing up here now to first prove there is a resource there. And then once they have a good handle on where the resource is and the economics of the resource and how much they want to, and how quickly they want to mine it, then they'll size the shaft and then get going with the shaft sinking and get going with the mining of it. And that'll take a number of years for sure. The good thing is it's on a brownfield site, so there's already mine shafts there. Community is there already. Community's pro mining. The community wants jobs. The government wants economic activity, and the world needs nickel. So everything's really going for them, and all they need to do is prove up a lot of this downhole geophysics they've been doing, and prove up that it is indeed economic mineralization of the scale that some of the EM says it is, and then trying to just figure out what they have and then size the shaft accordingly and get to work mining it.
Yeah. Okay. Look, Warren, I really appreciate your time. It's always enlightening to pick your brain. I mean, you've got such an amazing track record of finding winners in this industry that more often than not destroys investors. And so you're an anomaly in the game. And I appreciate your insight. And I'm not sure, are you coming to my conference in January? I need you to be there.
Yeah, my plans are to be there, Jay. Yeah, for sure.
Good. Right. Yeah, back in Vancouver. I'm excited to have you on stage and sit down and chat. We're going to have all kinds of fun panel discussions, and it's a total blast. So yeah, super honored to be hosting him. Glad you can make it. I knew we sent the invite out. My team hadn't let me know if you'd responded yet. So that's awesome.
Yep, I'll be there. You betcha.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, Warren. Appreciate it, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jay. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now, if you want to take the next step, I publish a weekly newsletter and it's free. There's a link to subscribe right beneath this video, and you can join me and 50,000 other investors weekly for this exclusive content where I share my key action items and takeaways from conversations just like this and plenty others. Thanks for stopping by.